Hi everyone, join me today as I colour these wildflowers using watercolour pencils. I'm going to start with my pencil sketch already on the page, and there is a free downloadable and traceable sketch reference for this. If you have a look in the description box below, I have put the link to the page where you can find the downloadables there. I will also put the link on the screen now, which you can type into your web browser and it will take you to my Patreon page where the free downloadable and traceable sketch reference can be found there for free. I'm going to use a kneaded eraser and just lift some of the graphite so that it's not so obvious. Then this is my roll of watercolor pencils. I've got a whole lot of mixed brands in here. My favorite is the Derwent watercolor pencils. I find that they go down the smoothest and have the best colors, but I've got a variety of different colors and brands in here, so you can use any color set that you've got. I'm just going to show you more about the technique and we can enjoy the process together. Today I'm going to be doing my flowers on Bao Hong hot press paper. This is a smaller pad, size 8.3 by 5.9 inch, and I quite like the hot pressed paper for watercolor pencils because it helps the pencil crown to go down easily and then blend easily when I add water to it. So I'm not quite sure yet what color everything is going to turn out, so I'm going to go with what takes me first and then move around my sketch. So the first thing that jumps out at me is this daisy, and I feel that it should be a bright yellow daisy. So I'm going to start with my lightest color yellow first, and it's really not about putting a large amount of color down, but rather to get the shade of the color correct. I think because this is going to be a yellow daisy, I just want to lighten this pencil a bit more, otherwise it's going to show through at the end. So I'm going to start with light yellow and basically cover all of the petals with the light yellow, and then I'll come in for some contrast after I've done that. And this hot press paper is so nice and smooth that the pencil crown goes down easily. I find if I use cold press paper that the color and the pencil crown kind of sinks down and gets stuck in the divots in the page. Then I'm going to take a deeper yellow and maybe just go around the edge of the petals. And as I said earlier, it's not about the amount of pencil crown that you put down, because these colors are going to intensify a lot when I add the water to it. So we don't want to actually put too much pencil crown down, otherwise it's just going to be way too intense by the time I add the water to it. Then I'll take an orange and just do a few stripes down the center of each petal. And I think I'm going to repeat the same thing each time with this daisy down here so that we can get a little bit of continuity. Then I'm going to do the interior of the daisy by starting, that's a little bit brown, I wanted a bit more orange brown than that. I'm looking for more of a burnt sienna sort of color. It's still not entirely what I'm looking for. Let's add some orange to that. So although you can't see the colors mixing together now, they will mix together when I put the water on. So that's a bit tricky because it's not like with watercolor, mixing it in the palette, you can see exactly straight away what color it's going to become. And I'll just put more of the darker color down at the bottom, just to give it a bit of three-dimensional shape. Then this is going to be a cosmos flowers, so that's also going to be a very light pink. So I'm lightening that pencil up a bit. So I'm going to start with a very light pink and cover all of the petals in that. And then whilst I do that, let me discuss the pros and cons, in my opinion, of watercolor pencil. I find it very relaxing to do. You know, there sometimes can be a bit of stress when working with watercolor, that it goes down on your page and maybe you feel that you don't have too much control. And whereas watercolor pencil, when it's at this earlier stage, you can control exactly where the color goes. So that's an advantage. I also like to work with watercolor pencils, say in the evening whilst I'm watching TV and I've got a lap tray on my lap. And it's very easy to just work with the watercolor pencils, get your color down, and then put the water on later when you get to a table. But the disadvantage for me is it feels like I'm doing the same thing twice. Like I'm having to put the color down here first and then come back and do an additional layer where I add the water to it. And that to me feels time consuming. So I've got that really light pink down, and now I want a contrast color. That's Crimson Lake, and this is, right, I'm going to try Rose Madder Lake. So firstly I need to separate the petals from each other. So this one here, I want to do a little bit of a shadow around the edge there, and then in the center. And likewise I'll do the same here. Alright, we'll just have to see how that turns out. In these ones, I think let's go blue. So I'll start with a very light blue. Again, I think I'm going to have to erase some more. And I think another disadvantage of watercolor pencils is that I feel like they're running out very quickly. I do like to work with a sharp point, and like here, this isn't a sharp point because I'm reluctant to sharpen it and then sharpen away some of the lead that I could have used. Yeah, you do get those special blades that you can slice the side off and try and sharpen it again, but I'm not so good at working with that. I prefer to sharpen with a normal a pencil sharpener, but then I feel like I'm losing so much. So whilst I'd really like to be working with a sharp pencil here, I'm not. Alright, now that the light blue is down, let's get a bit of something different. So I'm just going to, maybe around the center, put some of the darker blue. So that doesn't look like much now. I hope it's going to improve when I put the color on. Let's do a lavender color here. I'm going to start with a lighter pink. Maybe I'll add some of this lighter purple. And then this one I want to do sort of a bluish green. So this jade green, I'll start with that. Maybe I'll take this mineral green and just add a bit in and start the stalk. And then I'll just do these two little leaves at the bottom in that color. Alright, so now we need to do, oh, there's this one down here. I think I'm going to do that a magenta and maybe some Rose Madder Lake. I can't really see my pencil lines here, so I'm kind of just making it up as I go. And these ones, I'm looking for a reddish colour. So I'm going to start with carmine. And then get a bit of red as well. I feel like I'm going thoroughly out the lines here because my pencils are not sharpened. I'll just have to see what I can do at the water adding phase. Alright, so now we need to mix up our greens, I think. I'm going to take this olive green looking colour and do the daisies in that colour. Oh dear. Alright, I'm just trying to fix the fact that I went too thick there. Alright, then I'm going to go even more olive greenish and do the cosmos. And I quite like that colour. I'm going to use that for these blue flowers. Alright, then choosing a different green. Oh, I didn't do this leaf down here. Let me do that one quickly. Alright, then changing up a green. Yeah, so mixing colours with watercolor pencils, I find it easier to mix colours using actual watercolors because then you can do it on your palette and you can see the colour that you're mixing up as you go. Whereas if you're mixing colours with watercolor pencils, you kind of have to know the ratio of each colour because it's not always 50-50, right? So you've got to know the ratio of the colours that you're mixing together and layer them on top of each other, but you don't see the colour mix when you do that. It's only when you add the water and then the colours then mix on the page that you're then able to see the final colour. So that's a bit more difficult. I'll stick with that and just do this one. It's quite similar to the colour I've already used. Let's take this one. Alright, so and the centers there, I'll decide if I want to do it darker, like black, or if I want to come over with a bleed proof white or something and make the centers white. So let's get the first layer of water down first so that we can see where we are at. Right, so what I've got here is some water, tissue paper, and then I've got two brushes. These are Princeton snap brushes in a size 0 and a 2 because everything here is quite small. I'm going to start with the 0 and start working on the petals on the left hand side here. So I'm going to get some water on my brush, but just tap it off so it's not too wet as I'm working with it, and then use that to activate the color. And you can see that as soon as I put the water down, the vibrancy of the watercolor really does start to show through. Even that's a little bit too much water. It's pooling on the surface and I don't have much control of the color. So I'm just going to spread that down with my brush and use what's already on there to activate the next lot. So you can see how the color varies according to how much pencil crayon I put down and also the different mixes of colors that I used. And you'll see that as I work with the petals, I'm working from the outside in. I always start where the color is the lightest because it kind of seems to move with the brush as you move your brush over. And so if you had to work from dark to light, or from the center to the outside in my case, then you might drag the darker color across into the lighter area, and the whole thing might end up being lighter than you want, darker than you wanted. So that's why I just keep a note in my mind of where the lighter color was, start on that side, and then push towards the darker. So on these little blue flowers, my inside is darker. So I'm going to just touch around the outside first, and then blend it to the center so that I don't push the dark color out and cover the whole thing, because they really are very small. And then I'll do the stalks and leaves. If you are enjoying this video so far, I would really appreciate it if you would click the like button. Doing this really helps to grow my small YouTube channel, and it also tells YouTube to share videos like this with other people like you who might enjoy it too. So with the daisy now, I'm going to work from the outside in and just activate that nice orange streak down the middle. I'm avoiding the very center. I'll come back and do that. I'm just going to let that dry and not do the center right now, otherwise it's all going to blend into each other. And then with the cosmos, I'm going to work with alternating petals, just so that this sort of shadow color that I'm trying to create doesn't bleed from one to the next. So starting on the lightest pink there, and then moving across into the darker, and then just helping it to blend. Then I'll skip the next one just to allow that one to dry a little bit, and come to the bottom one, working from light to dark. Those have dried a bit, so now I will do the alternate petals, working light to dark. Now with this one that I was a little bit confused on, I think if I put color over the whole thing, it's all just going to mix together. So I'm going to try and work little piece by little piece, even if I've got to do a couple of passes on it, so that they don't touch each other. So starting on the light, and then just trying to blend into the little darker area that I put at the bottom of each, just to try and keep the segments separate now. I'm just going to lift some of the color at the top. So I'll come back to that. I'm just going to let it dry a bit. I'm going to do the center of this daisy now. Starting from the top down. I've got a little bit too much water on my brush here, so I'm just going to lift and dry off before I blend down into the darker area. I think this is dry enough that I can do my second pass. And then I'm going to repeat the petal process on this larger daisy, starting from the outside and then working in. Let me do what I think will be the last pass over here. And again with these ones, like I did with this one, I'm going to try and keep the little sections separate. So I'm going to work on alternates. I just had a bit too much water on my brush there. So if it's too wet, I really don't have much control over where it goes. But here, where I've got the right amount of moisture on my brush, I can start where it's light and kind of push towards where the dark is, and then that kind of gives me a bit of an outline. Alright, let's do the stalks. And again, I'm going to do one dot at a time on these, and skipping every second one. I can do the center of this big daisy now. So just drying off my brush so it's not too wet, I will work from the top down. And let me go and do every second part of these little red ones. And the alternates up here. And then I think I'm going to let this dry and then come and work on some contrast. Now that that's completely dry, I feel like I want to add some contrast in places, and to do that I think I'm going to have to sharpen some of my pencils. So I'm going to take this darker green and I'm going to get some edges to these little flowers here. I'll put a vein up the leaf. These ones I think are pretty okay. Maybe I'll just put a little bit of contrast around the center in places. The cosmos, I want to darken the edges. I'm just going to sharpen my rose madder color. And I'm going to increase that shadow area. I'll add some detail to the leaves. Then the daisies. I'll also just define the edges of the petals on one side. And I'll get a darker brown and just accentuate the bottom here. What I'm trying to do here is just get contrast to get a bigger range between the darks and lights in each flower, and also just to add some petal detail and and also to add some leaf detail. And then this I think I can push quite a bit darker underneath. Let me just sharpen. So I'm going to do a darker line again just to separate the areas. I'll do the same here. Right, let's get some water on this. Alright, I'm using my smaller brush again, and I don't want to spread this colour or these accents that I have added too far. No, that's too much water. So I'm using the smaller brush and I'm trying to restrict the amount of water I've got on it, just so that I can activate the colour I've put down but not spread it too far, so that I can retain that contrast that I'm trying to create. If you are enjoying this video and you would like to make a donation to me, you can do so on my Buy Me a Coffee platform. I will put the link in the description box below as well as on the screen now. I'm sure you can appreciate that making tutorials like this along with the traceable sketch reference is an immense amount of work, and I appreciate any and all donations. If you have made a donation, thank you. In my haste, I didn't give this one any accent, so let me do that now. I think I'm even going to put a bit of purple in there. Now I'm going to do the details on the cosmos flower in black. And I'll do a few little spots on the daisies in a dark brown. I don't even think I'm going to add water to the daisies. And I'll just do the smallest amount to the cosmos just to darken that black. And with some orange, I think I might just do some central veining on the daisies. And this also I'm not going to activate with water. And there's the final sketch. Thank you so much for joining me today. Please hit the like button and let me know what you think in the comments box below. Until next time, bye for now.